This video is on Pythagorean Theorem. So, the first thing you need to know about Pythagorean Theorem is what it's used for. It is used for one thing and one thing only. To find missing sides of a right triangle. So, the one thing it's not used for is to find missing angles. So, it's not used to find missing angles. If you have a problem with different angle measurements, it is not going to be a Pythagorean Theorem question on the GED. If you have side lengths, it's probably going to be a Pythagorean Theorem question on the GED. So, what is a right triangle? If you remember, a right triangle has a 90-degree angle. So it looks like this. So there's your right angle. It's usually drawn with a square. They're not always going to tell you that. Sometimes you have to assume it. But it means 90 degrees. Now, it doesn't have to be drawn in that direction. It can be drawn in any direction. The only important thing is that it has that 190-degree angle. So what is Pythagorean theorem? A squared plus b squared is c squared. And you do not have to memorize that formula. If you have the GED formula sheet, it's free to download. All you gotta do is just search online. You look at the bottom under algebra. I've got an arrow pointing to it, Pythagorean theorem. It's right here, a squared plus b squared is c squared. So, the first type of problem you might have is if you have a problem that has the two short sides. For example, 3 and 4. And they want to know how long this side is. So, how do you know which letters to use? Well, the A and the B are always the short sides. The C is always the long side. You'll hear it called hypotenuse. You'll also hear it called diagonal. The A and the B can be interchanged. It doesn't matter which one's A and which one's B. You can have A here, B here, or A here and B here. But this side always has to be C. So how do you use Pythagorean theorem? First, you identify that you have the two short sides. So you're going to be plugging these numbers in for your A and your B. For example, where your A is, you would put 4. You got to carry these exponents over. Squared plus B, which is 3, squared, and then you would end up with C squared. Now, if you have a calculator, you can do this on your calculator. You have to do this on a calculator, but I'm going to teach you how to do this on the TI-30XS. If you want to buy one of these, you can usually pick them up for around $15. You can also get the free download online if you have a computer. There will be a link to that in our Google Classroom. It took me about 30 minutes to download it, but I don't have real fast internet where I'm at, so it might be faster. I'm not sure if it works on a phone. I don't think it works on a phone. If you know how to use the calculator on your phone, that's fine, or any calculator that you can get a hold of that's partially scientific. It needs to have squares and square roots. So everything I'm going to show you is specifically for this calculator. So to solve this problem, you're going to enter this in right here on your calculator. So you would just hit the 4 key, then you would hit the x squared key. That key puts that exponent directly above that on your calculator. And of course, plus, and the 3 key, then the x squared key again. And then you would hit enter. You punch that in, it should give you an answer of 25. You bring down your equals and your c squared. Now the last thing you always do with Pythagorean theorem is you've got to get rid of this exponent right here. The way you get rid of squared is you do the opposite, which is square root. Whatever you do to one side of an equation, you have to do the same thing to the other side. So now how do you punch that in the calculator? You hit the second key. So at the top left hand of your calculator, it's green. Then you hit the x squared key, and that should give you a square root. And if you look directly above your x squared key on your calculator, you'll see a little green square root. You hit the green key to access anything that's green on your calculator. Then you hit the 2 key, then the 5 key, then the enter key. And it should look like that on your calculator. When you hit enter, it should pop up 5. And then that squared falls off, and that's it. Now, this is a special right triangle. There are a few right triangles that end up perfect right triangles, which means you don't have a decimal point on your answer or your two numbers that you've got. This is called a 3, 4, 5 triangle. I'm going to show you some tricks with the 3, 4, 5 triangle. If you remember this, it's great. If you don't remember it, it's fine. You can still use the formula on the GED. Now, 3, 4, 5 triangle. So if you have any of these two numbers, you can always get the third number. So if they give you the hypotenuse is 5 and one of the sides is 4, you know the other side's 3. Or if they give you 5 and the short side's 3, you know it's 4. Or if they give you 3, 4 and they ask for the hypotenuse, it's going to be 5 every time. Now this also works with multiples of these three numbers. So you can have the exact same triangle, except now you could double the 3 to a 6. You can double the 4 to an 8. And I automatically know that this is going to be 10 because that's doubled and that's doubled. I will just double my 5 and get a 10. You can keep going as far as you want. So if you had 3 times 3, which would be 9, 3 times 4 would be 12, I automatically know that this is going to be 15 because 3 times 5 is 15. Now there's another perfect triangle that you'll see in this packet. These are the two most frequent ones. There's other ones, but they're a lot less frequent. And this is called a 5, 12, 13 triangle. So you can do exactly the same thing with this triangle. So you can double the 5, double the 12, and then I know that this is going to be doubled to be a 26. If you can't remember that on the test, it's okay. You can still use Pythagorean theorem to find these. But if you can remember these, it'll make the Pythagorean theorem questions way easier. So you can keep going on all of those. Now, not every question is going to come out perfectly even. So let's say we had a right triangle that had sides of 3 and 7, and you're missing your hypotenuse. So the way you would solve that is you would plug in 3 for either A or B, and then 7 for the other one. And then, of course, we're missing our hypotenuse. So that's going to go there. Punch that in on the calculator by hitting your 3 button, your x squared, plus your 7, your x squared again, and then your enter. And you'll get 23. Bring down your equals and your c squared. Last thing you do, take the square root to get rid of your squared. Square root the other side. Now, when you punch that in the calculator, you're going to use the second key again, the x squared key, 2, 3, enter. Now, the TI-30XS is designed, if you're in the right mode, to give you perfect answers. So when you punch that in, you're going to get that as an answer because that's a perfect answer. A run-on decimal is not a perfect answer, so the calculator automatically doesn't give you that. You've got to use one extra key when you get answers like this. you've got to use the change key. It looks like this. It's white and it's directly above the enter key. So all you got to do is hit that one time, and then it will give you, and I rounded this to the 10th place, 4.8 as your answer. That's it. Now, sometimes you're not going to get the two short sides. They're going to give you a triangle that has the hypotenuse and one of the short sides, and you're missing the other short side. So this next formula I'm going to show you is not on the formula sheet. So if you do yourself a favor to memorize this formula, it will make the test a lot easier if you get one of these questions. Now, we talked about the Pythagorean Theorem being a squared plus b squared is c squared. You can rearrange this formula so that the hypotenuse is first. So you can put you can put c squared, then you can subtract either a or b, it doesn't matter which one. We'll just say a squared, and that will give you b squared. So if you plug in the hypotenuse for your c, subtract the side that you've got, it will give you your missing short side. So again, plug this in on the calculator. 4, 0, x squared, subtract 2, 4, x squared, enter. And it'll give you 1024. Bring down your equals and your b squared. The last thing you do is always going to be square root. So again, your second key, your x squared key, 1, 0, 2, 4, enter. And that will give you 32. Now, you may have noticed this, but probably not. This is actually a 3, 4, 5 triangle. So hypotenuse is divisible by 5. It goes in there 8 times. 24 is divisible by 3. It goes in there 8 times. 32 is divisible by 4. It goes in there 8 times. So this is a 3, 4, 5 triangle. Let's do one that's upside down. Again, they might give you the hypotenuse and one short side. So we would use this formula again right here if they give you the hypotenuse. So we start off with C, subtract, we'll say B this time, and that gives us our A. So punch that on the calculator, 3, 0, x squared minus 2, 0, x squared, enter. And that will give you 500. Last thing you do, take the square root. Second, x squared, 5, 0, 0, enter. And that gives you 10 square root 5. So that is an exact answer. We can't turn that in on the GED. We have to use our change button again. When you hit that, it gives you 22.36. Now, I only went 2 decimal places because I want to show you. Sometimes they're going to ask for the nearest whole number. If they ask for the nearest whole number, we would look at the 3. That tells us to say the same, so the answer would be 22. Sometimes they're going to ask for the nearest tenth place. So if they ask for the nearest tenth place, you would look at the 6. The 6 tells you to go up, so the 3 would go up to a 4. So we'd have 22.4. Sometimes they might tell you that they want it to the hundredths place. If they want the hundredths place, then it would be 22.36. Now, the GED is not going to be that easy. It's not just going to have a picture and 3 numbers. It's going to be word problems. If you're lucky, they have a picture. Sometimes you're not going to have a picture. So we're going to start off with word problems with pictures. So this says a ladder is placed 5 feet away from the house. So right here, you'll notice that this forms a right triangle. They're not always going to tell you that. You have to assume that whoever built this building built it square with the ground, which is normal for a building. So let's assume the ground is level and the building is level. That's going to make a right triangle right there. So they tell you that the ladder is 5 feet away from the building. They're talking about the bottom of the ladder. The ladder comes up 12 foot on the side of the house. So there's your 12-foot mark that's that long. How long is the ladder? So they're wanting that side right there. So they're wanting the hypotenuse. So we're going to use a squared plus b squared. So 5 plus 12 squared equals c squared, because we want the diagonal side or the long side or the hypotenuse. Punch that in on your calculator. You'll get 169. Now, if you would have been paying attention from your notes earlier, you would have noticed that this is a 5, 12, 13 triangle. If you punch this in on your calculator, square root of 169, you'll get 13 for your answer. But if you, that's not a decimal place, that's a blot on the paper. So 13 is your answer, 5, 12, 13. If you would have memorized that, you could just look at this problem and go, I know that's a 5, 12, 13, and you can skip all of this. Okay. Tiger has a rectangular garden measuring 12 meters by 20 meters. So they've got it marked 12 on this side, 20 on this side. So obviously they want the diagonal, so that's going to be the hypotenuse. If he wants to split diagonally from corner to corner using a fence, how long does his fence need to be? Give your answer in, and this is shorthand, 1 decimal place. So they want 1 decimal place as the answer. We know that this is our right angle, because this is a rectangle. It has to have a right angle in all the corners. So we've got our 2 short sides, and we're missing our long side. So it's going to be 12 squared plus 20 squared is c squared. Take time to put that in on the calculator. And you should get 544. Last thing we do is take the square root. If I'm not mistaken, I think this automatically comes out as a decimal. You don't have to use the change key, but I'm not positive. So the final answer is 23.32. Now I went ahead and wrote to the hundredths place just to show you they want 1 decimal place. So this would not be the correct answer. I wrote the 2 to show you that the 2 is less than 5, so that means the 3 stays the same. So the correct answer would actually be 23.3, rounded to 1 decimal place. Oops, that's not squared. So your final answer is 23.3. Now something that you need to study if you don't know it already is your cardinal points, because they're not always going to give this to you. You should know north is opposite from south. The tough one, west is going to the left, and east is going to the right. That's something that you should have memorized for the test. So it says Sally walks 4 miles due north. So here's her start point. She walked 4 miles north and then 3 miles due east. Due means they're exactly perpendicular. This is exactly south. This is exactly east. So this makes your right angle right there. How far has she walked as the crow flies? That just means just make a straight line if you could fly from her starting point. So her start to her end is over here. So they obviously want to know the hypotenuse. So that would be 3 squared plus 4 squared equals c squared. If you haven't already noticed that you should have solved this the easy way, this is a 3, this is a 4, this is going to be a 5. But I'm going to solve it for you anyway. Punch that in the calculator, you get 25. Last step, take the square root of 25, you get 5. Okay, a shed with a pent roof need to have some new roof beams fitted. The width of the shed is 5 meters and the height of the pent roof is 1.3 meters. Work out the length of the roof beams needed to 1 decimal place. So this right here is what you call extra information. You're not going to need everything that they give you in every problem. Don't ever assume that you're going to use every number that they give you. They're going to do that to try to confuse you. Don't assume that you need everything in a diagram. All you need to know is that this line right here makes a right angle with this line right here, and that diagonal makes a right triangle. So they're giving you one short side, it's 5 meters. The other short side is 1.3 meters. The hypotenuse is what they're looking for. So you're going to use 1.3 squared plus 5 squared equals c squared. Now take a minute, pause your video, and solve this on your own. When you punch this in the calculator, you'll get 26.69. Then the last step, take the square root, and it gives you 5.2. Captain is on a geocache hunt. His GPS tells him that he is 40 meters away from the treasure. So from his starting point, GPS is saying he's 40 meters away. He walks 24 meters due west. So from the start, he walks 24 meters this way. The GPS compass now tells him that the treasure is due south, which is perpendicular to where he just walked. So we know that that is a right angle. How far south does he need to go to find it? So obviously, you've got one short side, you're missing one short side, and you've got the hypotenuse. So this one is going to be a c squared minus b squared is a squared. So we start off with our 40 squared minus 24 squared equals a squared. And this doesn't matter if it's a or b. I just chose b there and a there. The only important one is c. Take a minute, pause your video, punch that on the calculator. You should get 1024. Last step, take the square root, you get 32. And if you haven't noticed, this is a 3, 4, 5 triangle. An anchor line for a tower needs to be replaced. The tower is 96 feet tall. The anchor line is 105 feet long. how far from the tower can it be placed to the nearest foot? So they want that side right there. So here's the tower, there's the anchor line. So we've got the hypotenuse and the short side. We're missing another short side. So we're going to start off with our hypotenuse, subtract our short side, and that will give us our other short side. Take a minute to plug this in on the calculator and solve it. You should get 1809. When you take the square root of both sides, you get 42.5. And I went ahead and rounded that, I think, to the nearest decimal place because the other ones were. Okay. Sometimes you're going to get problems without pictures. The absolute best thing that you can do with any geometry problem that doesn't have a picture is drawing a picture. Even if it's not a great picture, it will help you solve the problem. So it says a rectangle. So we're going to be talking about a rectangle. Has a width of 4 yards and a length of 5 feet. How long is the diagonal? Now, if you read over this too quickly, you're going to miss something. I missed something. That's why I always read problems twice before I solve them. If you use this rectangle and 4 and 5, you're going to get the problem wrong. Why? Because this is in yards and this is in feet. You cannot solve a geometry problem that has different units of measurement. Everything has to be the same unit of measurement, period, or you're going to get it wrong. So I always convert my larger measurement to my smaller measurement. And if you know how to convert yards to feet, you know there's 3 feet in a yard. So you're going to be multiplying 4 times 3 to get 12. So what you've actually got is 5 feet by 12 feet. And they want to know how long the diagonal is. Now, if you work this the easy way, you should have already noticed this is your easy triangle. 5, 12. What's the length of this hypotenuse? 13. But I'm going to solve it for you just in case you want to see it. 5 squared plus 12 squared, c squared. Punch that in the calculator. 169. Take the square root. You get 13. Find the length of a rectangle that has a diagonal of 25. So draw your rectangle. This time they're giving you the diagonal. Whoops. So they're giving you the diagonal of 25 feet and the width of 15 feet. It doesn't matter if you put 15 here or 15 here. I'm just going to put it here because I have room. So you're looking for this side. This is your right angle. So you're missing a short side. You've got the hypotenuse and the short side. So we're going to be subtracting 25 squared minus 15 squared. And that's going to give us b squared. Punch that in on the calculator. I'll give you a second. Pause the video. When you punch that in, you should get 400. Last step, take the square root. Square root of 400 is 20. Now, if you go back and look, you'll notice that this is another 3, 4, 5 triangle. 25 is divisible by 5 times. 15 is divisible by 3 5 times. So 4 times 5 would be 20. So 15, 20, 25. A 20-foot ladder is leaned against a wall. First thing I draw is a wall. You can go ahead and draw the ground if you want to. A ladder is leaned against the wall. So there's your ladder. It's 20 foot. If the base of the ladder, which is over here, is 8 feet from the wall, which is over here, that gives you a measurement of 8 feet right there. How high up the wall will the ladder reach? So we're missing that side. So again, you have your hypotenuse. If you want to go ahead and try to solve this on your own, pause the video and solve it. You're going to use 20 squared minus 8 squared gives you, we'll say, a squared. Punch that in the calculator, you get 336. So when you take the square root of 336, I think it gives you the decimal right away, if I did that right, or if I remember correctly. It's 18.3. Again, with a ladder, firefighters have a 17-foot ladder in order to reach 15 foot up a building. So you're going to be drawing a building, and a ladder, and the ground. The ground makes a right angle with the building. So the ladder is 17 feet. In order to reach 15 up the building, so we're going up the building, so this side is 15, but it doesn't matter if you accidentally level this 15, you still get the right answer. But we're missing that side right there. How far away from the building should the ladder be placed? So we're looking for that number. So we've got the hypotenuse, so we start with that. Subtract the short side. It gives us our other short side. So take a minute and solve that on the calculator. You should have got 64 equals b squared. You take the square root of 64, it'll be perfect, 8. Now this is another right triangle that comes out perfect. It's not used as much, but you might see it every now and then. 8, 15, 17. It comes out perfect, no decimal places. George rides his bike 9 kilometers south. So here's your starting point. So if he goes 9 kilometers south, he's going like that. Then 12 kilometers east, which would be this direction. How far is he from his starting point? So they're wanting to know the length of that line. There's your right angle. So this time you've got A and B. So you're going to be adding to get C. Pause it and punch that in on the calculator. You should have ended up with 225 equals C squared. When you take the square root of 225, it ends up 15. And if you haven't noticed, this is a 3, 4, 5 triangle. 3 times 3 is 9, 3 times 4 is 12, 3 times 5 is 15. Okay, find the hypotenuse of a right triangle in which the lengths of the other two sides are 5 meters and 12 meters. So you're missing the long side. Now, if you remember anything about your easy numbers, you should remember 5 and 12. And if you remembered, if your short sides are 5 and 12, your long side is always going to be 13. So you can solve that out if you want. You should be memorizing those by now. They're a lot easier if you memorize them. Hypotenuse of a right triangle is 20 meters. One leg is 16. Find the other leg. Now, I noticed this right away. If you're good at your times tables, you might notice it also. 5 goes into that how many times? 4 times. 4 goes into that how many times? 4 times. So that's a 4, 5. So we're missing our 3. But we got to know what to multiply by. Well, we multiplied 5 by 4 here and 4 by 4 there. So this is going to be multiplied by 4. So it's going to be 12. So this is a 3, 4, 5 triangle. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you these three, and I want you to pause the video and try to solve all 6 of those by yourself, and then I'll show you the answers to all 6. Okay, this one, your picture should have been like this, with this being 10 and this being 4. So 10 squared minus 4 squared equals b squared. 84 is b squared. Take the square root, and you end up with 9.2. You might need to use the change key on that. I can't remember. I think you do. This one had a 13 and a 12. And if you remember, just by looking up here, you know that 13 and 12 make an easy triangle. You would have known that was going to be 5 without doing any of the math. Down here, triangle like that, you have the 2 short sides. And again, if you notice your numbers, even though that's got a 0 and that's got a 0, that's a 3 and that's a 4, you should know that this is going to be a 5 with a 0. So it doesn't have to be perfect 3, 4, 5. It can be 30, 40, 50. Just in case you want to see how to solve that, it would have been like this. Your answer would have been 50. So a ladder, again, we have a building, ladder, 39, base, 15. So we're looking for that. So we've got our hypotenuse, so we're going to be subtracting. Whoops, that's not 14. And this was a 5, 12, 13 triangle. So 5 went into 15 3 times, 12 goes into 36 3 times, 13 goes into 39 3 times. That might be a little bit more difficult to notice, so you can always revert back to doing this. So you had your pier over here, you were 25 miles away, this was 24 miles east, so what you needed was that side. So 25 squared minus 24 squared, which is 49. Take the square root, you end up with 7. And this is a very rare perfect triangle that you almost will never see, but 7, 24, 25. The last one, you have a building again, a ladder. The ladder is 12 foot. It's placed 4 foot away from the building, so you need this. So it's going to be 12 squared minus 4 squared equals a squared. You get 128. And then square root of 128 is 11.3. And I think I rounded that one too. And that's it for the video. Thanks for watching.